Hi, welcome back to Leader Feeder, where we talk about how you as a frontline leader can engage your teams and better manage them for maybe better performance or all kinds of issues. I'm Suzanne, Jacques, the marketing coordinator here at Unique Training and Development, and I sit down in these discussions with our general manager, Kirk Langford.
Hello, Suze. How you doing?
Hi, yeah, I'm really good today.
Good, good.
It's, early, sun shining. It's,
it's all good stuff, right?
It's getting into the summer, right? Like, we're having a good time.
That's right. Good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Today, I want to take us down a path for a newly promoted supervisor.
Okay.
So whether you listening are a, newly promoted yourself, or if you are maybe a higher up manager who is hiring someone into a position for them, and it's a new frontline leadership role for them.
Yeah.
This episode will be worth a listen for them.
Yeah,
exactly.
Good.
So Kirk, can you first explain maybe to us before we get into, the three common mistakes that we have lined up today? Could you maybe explain to us like why this transition is maybe so challenging for leaders, for frontline staff, or for frontline leaders?
Yeah, I think so. In most cases, in the work that we do with frontline leaders in various clients in North America, we tend to find that the majority of frontline leaders are promoted from within, meaning that they're not brought from an external, they're not hired externally into the organization. They are a technical operator usually, so they're operating a piece of equipment or machinery or filling a very specific role, and they are then promoted to a frontline leader. Okay. Team lead, line lead, a supervisor. And I think what the biggest challenge there and what makes the transition so challenging is that when you're a technical operator, you get results through the work that you do. You put in more effort, you get better results. You put in more hours, you get more done, right?
Yeah.
Once you have a team in place and once you're responsible for a team, it's all about how can you get work done through your team? How can you achieve results through your team? And I think that's the biggest challenge, is that it's not to say that just putting in more effort or work as the leader necessarily creates better results as a team. You need to engage your team. You need to involve them. You need to make them feel like they're accomplishing something. They need to be all rowing in the same direction. And that's up to you to help put them on that path where we're all rowing in the same direction. And so I think the biggest challenge, honestly, is that they fail to realize that it's no longer about you individually and the results you get. It's about how you can get results through your people.
Right. Yeah. Big difference, right?
A huge, yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to talk about three common mistakes.
Yeah.
We know that there may be more or different ones, but we chose to talk about three. And our first common mistake is, what we call in our training, the leadership trap. So maybe you can explain to our listeners as to what that is, how it comes about, and probably how it can be fixed.
Yeah, so two big pieces with the leadership trap.
More importantly, how it can be fixed.
Yeah, that's right. So the two big pieces with the leadership trap are that you become a newly promoted supervisor and you want everybody to know that, hey, I'm the leader, I'm here to listen, I'm here to help. And so, you know what? Open door policy. Anytime you need me, I'm here. It's even more challenging if you are a frontline leader who's on the floor with your people still, right? You haven't been moved over to an office or anything. You're a working leader, what we call, where you're still maybe on the line. In those cases, you're very available. And so when you do an open door policy and you say, any questions, come see me. Okay, seems great. Seems like a good idea, right? Here's the problem with that. If you leave it as whenever you have an issue or a question or concern, come see me, then in order to get FaceTime with the leader, you need to have an issue or a question or concern. And it can lead to people almost creating issues, questions, or concerns because they're wanting attention from the leader. Now, I don't mean this in a childish way, like, oh, they want your attention so they break something. That's not what I mean. But everyone on the team wants the leader from time to time to check in with them, to see how they're doing, to maybe give them a bit of praise for doing a good job, whatever it might be. The leader should be making sure that they spend time with everybody. But if you have this open door policy, see me anytime you have any questions, what you tend to end up doing as the leader is spending a lot of your time with maybe your lower performers because they're always coming to you with issues, questions, problems. And your high performers tend to feel ignored.
Right.
So the leadership trap, or the solution to the leadership trap, is creating a proactive sort of walk-around schedule where each day or each shift, a couple times during that shift, you are out proactively touching base with everybody on your team.
Right.
And as a result, I'm going to see you just as many times as I'm going to check in with Wendy, with just as many times as I'm going to check in with Terry. So that does two things. The first thing it does is it means that everyone on my team gets more or less equal amount of face time with me. So no one's creating issues or anything like that just to get to see me, right? It also means that I get a little bit more control over my day.
Right.
Because instead of waiting for you to come at me with problems and one day, people aren't really coming to me much, the next time I have no free time because everyone's coming to me nonstop. If the leader knows that, hey, Kirk's going to be coming around shortly because he's usually, coming around every now and then, I'm more likely to save a question or a comment or a concern until I know one of those walkarounds is happening, right? And by walkarounds, I mean physical walkarounds where you're out touching base physically with each person on the team, right? Hey, how's it going? Any help I can give you? Any questions you have? So on and so forth. So you're less likely to come in and, the sky is falling, we got to fix this, to go, no, he's going to come around and I'm going to check in with him and ask him my question at that time.
Yep.
So you get a little bit more of an organized day when you take this more proactive approach, right, to doing that. So that's what the leadership trap is all about. And it's a common mistake because, again, as a leader, we want to show that we are available. We want to show that we care. So we say, anything, come see me anytime, I'm here.
So anybody, I guess anybody listening, frontline leaders, there are signs then that you are stuck in this trap. And I guess one of them is your days being interrupted.
Yep.
Not feeling organized or putting out fires. Like, are those all...
all three of those. You feel disorganized. You feel like the day gets away from you. You feel like you're constantly putting out fires. You feel like you have no time to proactively plan. Any of those could be signs that you want to implement the leadership solution rather than just getting stuck in the leitership trap.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Well, hopefully we can help some frontline leaders with that then, because that's a big tip, isn't it? Yeah, huge. Absolutely. Yeah. The second thing I believe that we talk about when we're talking about the three common mistakes that newly promoted frontline supervisors do is that they want to handle everything themselves and they want to show that they can do it all on their own. Can you talk about why? Well, I mean, I feel like I know the answers to why that can be an issue, because just saying it, it doesn't feel great saying it. No. So what can happen? Why is that a common mistake?
I think it's a common mistake because they are trying to impress management, right? Management has put them in this role and they want to show management, I got this, I can do this, you hired the right person.
Right.
But they also want to show to their team, I'm competent, I'm skilled, and I am worthy of being in charge. Yeah. So I think it's actually coming from both ends, which makes the frontline leader is in a tricky role, right? Because they're in this middle piece where they're answering to management. They're also responsible to answering to their team. And they're wanting to prove to both sides that I got this. And so we tend to take on probably too much. And we tend to really want to prove that worth through doing more. Yeah. So we take on more and we solve more problems than we probably should. And the reason this is a problem, because you might think, well, that sounds good. I mean, you got this frontline leader that's working their butt off. That's great. But often what it means is we have team members sitting idle and team members not being coached and built up because the leader's doing everything. And it's an easy trap to fall into, again, because if they were a good technical operator, they probably realized, like before they were promoted to a frontline leader, they probably realized that if I work harder and I do more, I get more done. So what does a frontline leader do to either prove themselves and or to keep the department running smooth? They just take on more.
Take it all on.
Suze, you didn't fill out that report right. Instead of taking the time to coach you to fill it out right, no big deal. I'll take it. Don't worry. You're good. Thanks for trying. Okay, head out. I'll and I'm doing now. Well, what's going to happen the next time you do that same report? You're going to probably do it incorrectly again, and I'm going to have to fix it. Rather than saying, hey, let's sit down tomorrow, and I'm going to show you how to do it properly, right? We're going to fix those couple of things that I noticed so that the next time I hardly will even have to look at it. Right. So instead of taking on an approach of proactive empowerment, right, and accountability, we're taking on this approach of taking on more than we can handle or more than we should. And now we have a team that is not being empowered and a team that's not being cross-trained and a leader that's overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's a great point and great tip to, take the time, right? Are there any other tips that maybe could help a frontline leader delegate more, or maybe what they should delegate, how to delegate?
That's a little bit tricky. I would say there's a couple things. If you want, you can think of the things like, what are you not particularly good at yourself, right? What do you find yourself pushing off? And is there someone on your team that's actually better at it, right? As the leader, we sometimes think that we have to be good at everything or we have to like doing everything that's generally assigned to the leader. But are there other things that someone else might be better at, and we can allow them to shine, as it were, allow them to really have success with it? So that's, I suppose, one way to look at it is, what are you allowed to potentially give to somebody else that is something you're not good at, right? That's the first piece. The second thing I would think about is, what are the things that you're doing consistently or repetitively or frequently that you're going, this is constantly me fixing someone else's problem. This is me putting out a fire that someone else should be able to put out.
Yeah,
in that case, that's a great opportunity for empowerment. So, Suze, you're constantly asking me, I'm thinking to myself, Suze is constantly asking me about this issue or this concern. This is something that I feel pretty confident with a bit of coaching. She can deal with this on her own. I don't need to be hand-holding you on this. So that's an opportunity to go, I'm going to spend time coaching on that. So that in maybe it's a week, maybe it's a couple months, I don't have to deal with it anymore because I know that you can confidently and competently deal with it.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, those are two great ways that, people can start maybe get on the road to delegation. And great. Yeah. Another thing that we talk about a lot, and I think this is our third common mistake, is that, and perhaps it's because the new frontline leader or in charge of the team hadn't experienced it themselves, so they maybe don't know what to do, which is where our training does come in, right? Is feedback. So if they weren't exposed to feedback, they might not know how to give feedback. Like, how can a frontline leader, how can they tackle this common mistake?
Well, you're right that one of the big issues is that they're not open to feedback. And part of it's because if they're a technical operator, they were looking at the department or the team and they were seeing probably some issues. And so they want to come in and fix things that that they didn't like about the way it was being run before. Now, that can be whether you were promoted from within or whether you were hired externally. You could come in and go, God, there's a lot of issues that I want to fix that the previous leader, didn't address or didn't deal with. In fact, we have a client where I was working with them, and there was a mention during the workshop that this one manager was about to retire, and the whole team was just kind of itching to improve stuff because there were all these things that they said. The manager's a year or two from retirement. He's completely checked out, unfortunately. He's just waiting until he retires. And, I can't blame him, I guess. But at the end of the day, you've now got these team members that have all these changes they want to make that they're not able to. But a little bit of a side point there. But in this case, not being open to feedback, I think, comes from you have all these changes you want to implement and you're sure that they're the things that are going to make the team better. But what you might forget is that you have to get results. Again, going back to the first point, you have to get results through your team. Right? And so getting them on board with the changes is so important. And keeping in mind that a new leader, even if it's someone that's promoted from within, is already a big change, right? If you've had the same leader on your team for a year or 2 years or 10 years and that person moves on, just the fact that it's a new person at the helm is already a shift. And then that person wants to bring in changes, improvements. Then there's even more change on top of that. And I think we tend to forget that too much change or too much disruption too quickly can be really scary, right? Especially in a manufacturing environment where sometimes consistency, stability, predictability is important or even expected. And now you're introducing change. Now, I know we can say, well, change is the only constant. Everybody should be ready for change at all times. That's easy to say.
But
that's really hard to have that mentality all the time. Especially, again, if we've had a leader who's been the same person for quite a while. When we think about change, even if it's a positive change, even if the new leader has positive ideas, change still represents, it could be a disruption to our existing habits, which makes life a little bit tricky, right? Think about driving in autopilot. And by that, I mean, you drive into your driveway home from work and you go, wait, how did I just get here? Because you're just on autopilot, right? So it can be a disruption to our existing habits that makes us have to think more, work harder. It could be the fear of the unknown, right? And it can also just be that there's the power in the status quo. And by that, I mean, things the way they are, there's a lot of power in that. And even if something is positive, the change we want to make is positive, it could just be hard to shake us out of the way we currently do things.
People could be like, well, but that's the way that we've
done
it.
And
there's
it's
nothing
easy and we already
really
know.
wrong with
it.
It's
just not as good maybe. So I think when we factor in all of the change that someone is subject to when a new leader comes on board, if you're a leader that's not open to sort of feedback and wanting to involve the team in these improvements, I think you might fall flat a bit or face face a wall of this team that is like, whoa, slow down, dude. We appreciate that you're here now, but my gosh, you're trying to change everything overnight.
Yeah.
So I think a lack of openness to feedback and a lack of wanting to involve the team in the changes to find out, okay, how open are you to some of these changes? How ready are you for some of these changes? Or do I need to do a little bit more? Do I need to slow down a little bit or change my direction? Or do I need to try to get a couple of change champions on board with me so that as I'm trying to put through these changes that I feel will improve the team and how we perform, I'm not being met with so much resistance.
What's like really great stuff. So like, what's a practical strategy then? Like if someone wants to get feedback or, wants changes that they have to make, or the team has changes they want to make. Like what's a practical strategy that a frontline leader can take to get all this feedback?
So in our Accelerating Operational Performance podcast that Greg Schinkel does, of course, one of his first guests was, in fact, I think it was the first guest was Ben Whitney from Armor
Yeah,
2,
I was going to say, right? I hope you get that right.
Yeah,
it was Ben Whitney.
Ben, from Armor Tool. And he mentioned that, I believe it was when they purchased another company that's now, in their under their umbrella, he went in and he asked everybody, give me your feedback for how we should improve. Now, Ben already had lots of ideas of how to improve things, right? He was a smart guy and he already had all these great ideas, but he asked everybody for their thoughts. And the great thing was that some of the things that he had in mind to change ended up being suggested by the folks already working there. So how much more likely are people to buy in if it's not the new boss coming in and giving ideas, but hey, these were some suggestions that you folks had. How awesome that you've been thinking about this, that you're on board with it. So my point there is, seek and ask for their feedback, right? Reach out and say, hey, I'd love to hear how you think we could improve the department. You folks are here working in it day in and day out. Tell me how we can improve. And then if they come up with ideas or submit ideas to you that you already go, yeah, I wanted to do this anyway, celebrate it as their idea. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter whether you get celebrated for being the one that came up with it or not. What matters is that the idea gets implemented successfully and hopefully with the minimal amount of resistance.
Yeah, and it's also good to know that the team is also kind of on the same page or seeing the same things that you are, right?
Exactly.
What a great, that's a great thing to look at in so many different ways too, because like you said, if you just come in as the new frontline leader and say, well, these are all the things that I want to change, if people were thinking the same things, they could get on the flip side and just be like, well, I was going to say that and I was thinking about that. They might not take it as much as like, maybe they will. I mean, I'm thinking maybe too negatively about it, but like if you give them a chance, right? It validates that what you're thinking is right. It also shows the people on your team, well, you know what? Maybe it should be anonymous. Maybe they would be more open to sharing their ideas if it was anonymous.
It could also share you as kind of a final point. It could also show that some of your ideas your team's not ready for yet. So if you ask for feedback or different ideas and you have a couple of ideas that aren't even touched on, it might show that that's still a bridge too far, meaning that you've got to wait a little bit, maybe implement some of these lower hanging fruit, some of the easier changes, and then work on some of these maybe harder changes down the road.
Would you do this as like a shift start meeting, or would you have it where people take something home and write down a couple of things that they want to change and then you all have a meeting about? I imagine meetings are sometimes a touchy subject because there's not a lot of time for another meeting, but where would you kind of fit this in?
It'll depend, obviously. Lots of different manufacturing settings have different ways of doing it. Some do have shift start meetings, some don't. I certainly would give people time to think about it, and by that, you might say at one of your shift start meetings, hey, I'd like everybody to start thinking about ways we can improve the department, and then give them maybe a couple days or a week, and I probably wouldn't say them out loud at our next meeting, because people might feel a little bit shy about some of their ideas, or they don't want to see everyone's reaction when they suggest something. And so you might announce it at a meeting, but I would actually probably say, shoot me an email or send me a message with your ideas. Make it perhaps not anonymous, but just a little bit more private, so people can feel comfortable submitting their ideas.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So those are our 3 common mistakes that we think a new frontline leader. So hopefully this will help you navigate those challenges, or if you maybe didn't even realize that you were stuck in a couple of those and you're going, now hopefully this will help you find a way out. So thank you for joining us on Leader Feeder, and until next time.